All right, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm looking forward to talking a little bit about social media do's and don'ts in the marketing segment today. So with that, let's just go ahead and dive right in. As far as what we're going to cover today, really today is about sort of the best practices, rules of the road, if you will, as far as using social media. We're not going to dive down into specific strategies within each platform or strategies for social media marketing or goals around that. This is really a higher level sort of what we should and shouldn't be doing on social media, and likely in April's Water Damage University, we'll dive deeper into some of those areas around social media marketing by platform and how to use, Facebook and LinkedIn and so forth. So let's first make a business case here a little bit for social media. If you haven't figured it out by now, it's certainly not a fad. It's here to stay. A lot of studies out there show that darn near 100% of small businesses are using social media quite a bit. And on the consumer side, and this is important to us because obviously we're not necessarily selling anything online per se. All of our sales and marketing is really an offline venture, but more than half of consumers out there say that social media influences their offline buying behavior. So for example, with us, perhaps if you're on a route and you're seeing an agent's office maybe for the first time, you can be rest assured that a good number of those folks are going to look up your company on social media. They want to see what you're doing and saying on things like Facebook and LinkedIn, which is all the more reason why it's so important to have a presence on social media. Hopefully everybody listening today has decided or has already had a company Facebook page, perhaps a company LinkedIn page at least, because people are looking. And the downside of it is that when people go looking for you on social media and you're not there, it starts to erode the trust a little bit and the credibility because they're expecting to see you there. So just know that it's here to stay. It's something that you should be involved with. And we're going to talk a little bit today about the do's and don'ts around that. And again, using it is one thing, being effective is completely something else. So we'll talk about that a little bit as we go through that. And if we just want a sort of a general definition of what social media is, it is those websites and those applications that allow folks to create and share content in real time or to participate in networking on social media. There's really no mystery around what something like a Facebook or a LinkedIn is. It's really no different than the water cooler at work or having discussions at a party or at a social event. Just think of the sort of the rules of etiquette as it relates to those things, and a lot of those will apply in social media because that's what it's used for. So let's talk about the 10 do's that we have. First of all, know your customer. And what I mean by that is we're really speaking in social media to two sort of groups out there, if you will. There are certainly the loss victims, homeowners, that will be often using social media to check your company out as well as your referring parties. Primarily agents, you might get some of the blue collar types, but for the most part, it's the white collar types that are using social media to kind of check you out and investigate you. But the thing you've got to understand is that you really have to be thinking about sort of the content and how you use social media as it relates to these folks. What they're not interested in, frankly, is about you. They're interested in what's in it for them. So when they come to your social media page, let's take Facebook for an example, what they want to see are content and tips that you might be providing them that are helpful to them. So that could be anything from, hey, cold weather's coming, be sure your pipes don't burst, to CE classes for agents and notifications of those classes. When people go to your page, your company page, they're expecting to see valuable content that's useful for them. And so use the 80-20 rule in this. When you start to evaluate the content and the things that you're doing on social media, on your company's Facebook page, for example, make sure that 80% of the time the content that you're posting is something that's going to be about them, the user, and what's going to be useful for them. And the other 20% at the most can be about you. So it's just a good guideline to look at. You might go back and look at maybe the last few weeks of social media posts that you've done on your page and really start to kind of run up in your mind a little calculator there around how much of that is about the folks that are coming to my page and how much of it is about me. And you really want to be focused on them. When you do that, you're going to see a lot more interaction on your social media pages. You're going to see a lot more visits for people coming through. Be active, but don't overdo it, right? So we're all busy. Everybody has marketing and advertising and messaging and emails and posts on social media coming at them all the time. So just be aware of how much you're doing. Probably a good rule of thumb if you want to have a presence on Facebook, one post a day is adequate. I wouldn't go more than a couple posts a day on Facebook. And LinkedIn is probably a little bit less. LinkedIn, if you're doing about a third to a half of the activity that you're doing on Facebook on LinkedIn, you're probably in good shape. Anything above that, people are going to start to find it to be a bit of a nuisance, because as you pop up in their threads and in their timelines and whatnot, and they get alerts about your posts if they're following your pages or they've liked you and so forth. If you're constantly barraging them with content, eventually they just kind of turn it off. Again, think about sort of at a social situation, the person that's in the room that's doing all the talking. You tend to find a lot of distance around them as the event goes on. So just take the same kind of thought process into how much you're posting on social media. Keep a track of time when you're posting. So there's some general guidelines out there that come from the various platforms in general. When those platforms, whether it be Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and others, tend to see the most activity in those times you'll see here on the screen. So for example, on Facebook, usually between 1 and 4 p.m. on any given day is when Facebook users are most active in consuming content and so forth. Now, the good news is that you can get even more specific in this. So, for example, in Facebook, if you go into your page, you'll see usually at the top there's a navigation called Insights. And if you click that Insights, it'll take you into some background and some analytics and data around your Facebook page. And within that, you will see a timeline. And it'll tell you when people are coming to your page and when they're reading or consuming the content you put on there, the time and the days in which that's happening. So just kind of watch that. You'll see trends in that, and then over time you'll be able to use that to know, hey, maybe Wednesdays at 2 are the most advantageous time for me to post something on Facebook. Kind of the same thing for LinkedIn. They have the same kinds of insights, and so does Twitter. Avail yourself of the data that they give you in those platforms to really understand what are going to be the peak times to put something out there. But the more you're posting at those available times, the more interaction you're going to get with your posts. One thing I would strongly encourage is have a company policy around social media in your company. A couple reasons for that is it's going to protect your company's reputation. It does defend against legal trouble and security risks, and it does, probably most importantly, it empowers your employees to share that company messaging. I put a link on here, and then when we post this WDU up on our website, you'll be able to access this link as well. But if you're needing sort of a template to build a social media policy, that's what this link will do. It'll take you right to a document that you can download and start to manipulate for yourself or your company. But I would strongly encourage you to have a social media policy written in the company. And for example, in the marketing rep trainings that I do, I often hear stories about employees that went out and posted something on the company's social media page, whether it be Facebook or LinkedIn. Maybe it was a picture of a lost victim's house with identifying information. So having a policy in place and sharing that policy and making sure that everybody understands what you do and don't allow from a social media perspective is key. And I would strongly encourage you to have that policy in place. Make sure you're sharing. And I've given a couple examples on here. One of them is one of our members, LipTac out east, and Jimmy out in El Paso. They both do a really good job of sharing information. I see them constantly out there liking other people's posts and putting up interesting content themselves. So it's obviously critical that you're not only do you have a Facebook and a LinkedIn page, but you're actually actively using it. So probably the worst thing that can happen, you would almost be better off not having a Facebook page if you're not going to be active on it, because you don't want people coming to your social media pages and finding that the last time you posted was 2 years ago. That doesn't help you from the human visitor standpoint, and there's a part of social media that also helps in your own website's search engine optimization. Google especially looks for active engagement on social media platforms because that's how they can tell that you're real and that you're relevant and that you have something to say that people want to pay attention to. So make sure that you're active in sharing in your social media. When you do post, I would encourage you to have a short checklist. And I put 4 things on here that probably should be checked every time. You might have some other things based on your company's social media policy, the appropriateness of posts, and so forth. But definitely you want to look for things like grammar. Is it sharing enabled, right? So believe it or not, there are switches you have to throw in pretty much every social media platform that allow for people to take your posts and share them with others. Make sure that that is enabled. What time to post. Again, like I mentioned previously, that you can easily figure out what are the best time to post, and make sure when you're posting that you're going through this checklist and saying, hey, well, let's hold off on this post until whatever, 4 o'clock this afternoon, whatever that might be, because we're going to get better engagement. And make sure that if you do put links in the post where you're sharing other web pages or documents or whatever it might be, always check and click those links and make sure that they go where you want them to go when you're posting that up. I'd strongly encourage you to be original. And it's fun because I'm constantly scanning members' Facebook pages. I'm pretty much connected to most of them, looking for interesting things that people put up. So be original. There's easy ways to go out there and get pictures like this. They're called memes. Just type MEME into Google and you'll go find some of them. You can create your own, and there's tools out there to create your own. This is just one example from the Hongslows. Who are constantly doing this kind of stuff. I mean, this is the kind of thing that people like to see on social media. They don't just want a constant flow of sort of straightforward, maybe business type of posts from you. Feel free to be original and post some things out there. That shows a lot more about your company and your personality. I would always look to make sure I've got some of my posts are really about customer service. Here's a great one from Right Way Up in Washington. This is obviously aimed towards loss victims and providing them a real rich resource that they can use about managing the insurance process during a water damage or a fire, or whatever that might be. And they're actually giving a download to a PDF version of that information. So this is just an example of really using your social media platform to be a great provider of customer service out there, whether that's a loss victim of yours or somebody that maybe not is a loss victim yet and working with you. This is just another great piece of information to share with them, and shows that your company is very interested and engaged and wants to make sure that that customer is getting everything that they need. Don't be afraid to have a personality. Again, Right Way here showing one of theirs, kind of a fun little thing about their newest box truck where they slapped literally a box on the back of a truck just to kind of share some interesting and fun information with people. People buy from people they like, and people engage with people that they like. And we all want to see that company is real people that have a personality, that there's real people behind that logo, behind that brand. And so social media is just an absolute perfect place to show that personality. People expect that. This is the kind of stuff that when you put it up, you'll find more people following you and liking you and following along with you. So don't be afraid to do that. Also, understand which social media platforms are best for your business. Now, as a general rule, in our testing and in a lot of the discussions that I've had with members around the country and looking at data and what's going on out there, usually far and away, Facebook and LinkedIn are the 2 most popular platforms in terms of being able to reach an audience and that audience engaging with you on social media. Next level down would be YouTube and Google Plus or Google My Business. They're going by different names these days. Those would be the next 2 most used platforms. And I'm talking specifically to our industry here. And then further down the line are a lot of the other platforms that we kind of hear about, whether that's Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter, those kinds of things. At least in our industry, this is sort of a top-down look at which platforms are the most useful, that are going to get the most engagement. You might have better experience on one of these versus the other. Again, this is just sort of a general look at it. You can certainly, again, go in and look at the data that you get out of each one of these platforms to understand which ones are working best for you. So don't take this as a hard and fast rule. If you find that your Google My Business page or Google Plus page is getting a lot more activity than LinkedIn, by far, absolutely go and invest more time and resources into that platform versus the other one. But really understanding which ones are working for you is critical. We get caught up in this idea sometimes that, hey, I have to be on Twitter because that's cool, that's the next thing, or Instagram, or whatever it might be. But let's be real here. We want to use the ones that are going to get us the most engagement. The data's out there. Go look at it. Make sure you're using the ones that are right for you. All right, let's switch gears and let's talk a little bit about the things that you don't want to be doing on social media. And a lot of us are guilty of some of this sometimes, liking your own posts. I mean, obviously we like our posts because we're posting them, right? But you want to make sure that you're literally not going in there. If you're the one that posted that particular one, go in and like it yourself. It's just sort of bad etiquette. You don't want people to see that. So kind of avoid that. And also encourage your staff, your employees. They can absolutely post, like posts that are put up by you and the company, right? So they can go in there and share that with their network. And there's a real growth factor when that happens. It almost, there's a massive increase in the reach that you can have when your staff are taking your posts and sharing them in their social media networks, right? So encourage them to do that. You're going to see a lot more return on the content that you're putting out there when your staff are in there doing that. So don't do it yourself. Encourage your staff to go in, and when you guys post things, share it with their network. Absolutely. Don't neglect your profiles, right? So when you set up, or if you currently have, say, for example, a Facebook page, make sure that your profile and your setup are following some best practices. Number one, obviously complete your profile. Make sure clearly your name is in there. If you have a tagline, photos, biography about your company, maybe about key staff or the owners, make sure that that's in there. Then you need to search for like-minded people to connect with, the liking of other pages, right? And this is just a little bit of a commitment. If you build a habit of 5 minutes a day, somebody at the office going out there and maybe searching for more agents in your area, those kinds of things, make sure that they're doing that. Just 5 minutes a day, you'd be amazed at the dramatic effect that can have after a month in terms of the reach of your page and the people liking you and following you. And then start conversing and building relationships. Like I said before, sharing, engaging, making sure that you're active on there. Go to, when you do find those other folks that are appealing to you, the agents, for example, go out there and chat and comment on their pages, interact and share. Again, 5 minutes a day, somebody dedicated to it in the office doing this can make huge returns even in a short time of a month or so. Next S is strategizing, right? Creating content and sharing. Content can come in many different places. If you're not in the More Floods members Facebook group, I would encourage you to do that, because go in there and see what other folks are sharing in that group, and then go to those company pages and see what they're posting and the information that they're sharing. You'll see some trends there. You'll see great posts and information that are out there to get ideas from. And then you can start to build on those ideas yourself. Again, somebody dedicated in the company to spending just a few minutes a day doing this will have huge returns. And again, like I said, make sure you're sharing out there and actively using your pages, because you do not want dormant pages. You do not want a Facebook page that's been weeks or months or God forbid, a year since you posted on it, because that just shows people that you're not engaged and that you're not really providing useful information out there. And then again, scheduling. Choose how often you'll post and when. If you just create even a calendar internally for social media sharing, again, dedicating somebody to that who's going to spend 5 minutes a day doing these types of things can also be the one who's gathering that content and scheduling and posting that content up. And there are lots of tools out there if you really want to get crazy about this, like one called Hootsuite. Hootsuite. They have actually a free version of that where you can actually go in and schedule posts a week, a month, 6 months out, right? So if you want to spend more time in that, maybe spend half a day scheduling all those posts, load them up in something like Hootsuite, and then just click the on button. Then Hootsuite will do the posting for you, and that way you're not having to go in there every day and do that. If you don't want to do that, you can do it manually. Like I said, somebody dedicated to this every day and spending a few minutes can certainly stay on top of that. Don't share too much or too early. And maybe, for example, where this one comes into play, let's say you're going to launch or make available new CE classes to agents. I don't know that social media is the first place you want to go and announce that, because you're obviously going to have some relationships out there with existing agents that you have ways to reach those agents, whether it's email, route marketing, whatever it might be, where you want to make that announcement or make them aware of that before it goes out to sort of the more general audience on social media. And again, on the too much side, again, be careful about how often you're posting, and don't sort of inundate everybody's feeds and pages with your content. Be careful about that, but just be thoughtful about when and how often you're going to post and what you're going to post. And if you have big news to share or new things that you're offering out there to your customers, think about the other channels you want to go to first to make them feel special, that they got that information ahead of time before you decide to put it out there on social media. I would be careful about connecting with everyone, right? So we have this sort of propensity in things like LinkedIn and Facebook that if somebody shares or likes or friends us, we feel like we're going to go out there and automatically do it with them. You'll see in LinkedIn where people have potentially hundreds or thousands of people that they're supposedly linked to on LinkedIn. I would be very careful about who you're doing that with, because you're going to be guilty by association, right? So there are some folks or entities that might be following you, might like your content, that you have to take a careful look at them and see, is that the kind of person or entity that I want my company and my brand to be associated with? So just be cognizant of that. Think about that before you just automatically click that like or follow button. Don't forget to network on social media. It's probably the most powerful part of social media is that networking capability, right? And if you do it right, it's a great way to build word of mouth. So you think of that, you say that State Farm agent that's working with you, and if you're posting great content and you're using social media to network with them, maybe sending them tags and posts and whatnot about content that you're putting out there, some of those are going to eventually want to take your information from a networking perspective and share it with their peers. It's a great way to build brand from one agent to another in social media. Don't forget to do that. And of course, don't forget that what we post lives forever. Even if you delete a post off of your social media account, if one person has grabbed it and shared it, it's going to be out there living forever. I apologize to anybody that might be going to Taco Bell today for this guy licking the tacos, but this guy decided that it would be a fun thing to do that and post it on social media on Taco Bell. Well, you can imagine what that created. So don't forget that what you post does live forever. The moment that somebody grabs that, it's out there and you cannot get it back. So again, be careful about what you're posting. I often tell folks, if you're posting about a party that you attended on your personal account, it will reflect on your company, and anything you post there is going to live forever. Don't be spammy, and I guess what I mean by this, none of us are really involved in any kind of social media spamming out there per se that you see a lot from product companies and retail companies and so forth. But what I would say is, sending the same information to your followers many times over, right? So if you've put a post up, say in the last couple of weeks around broken pipes and sharing, what to do, what not to do to make sure that you don't have broken pipes, don't put that thing up the same time day after day after day. Just know that once it's in there, it will live. If there's a really important post that you have that you think a lot of people are going to be interested in, and certainly in Facebook, you can do what's called pinning that to the top of your Facebook page, and you can leave it up there for a little bit, and that way then every time a visitor comes to your page, that's the first thing they see. But again, just be careful about how repetitious you're being with certain content, and make sure you're not doing the same thing over and over again. Do not ignore comments. The main reason that people get involved in social media from a networking perspective is they feel like they want to leave a comment about a particular post that you put up. And if they do that, don't ignore it. If they post something positive up there, thank them for it, or share more information by going in there and commenting or replying to their comment. They really want to see that you're active on there. And the general rule of thumb is if somebody puts a comment up on one of your posts, be prepared to respond to that within 15 to 60 minutes at the outside if you can. That's not always possible, but just know that if they put a comment up there, you certainly want to respond to that as quickly as you can. Let's talk about negative comments, because I get this question a lot, right? So what if somebody comes on and posts a negative comment on your social media page? And there's two camps of people that will do this. One we'll call rational folks. The other one we'll call irrational folks. So let's talk about the rational commenters, right? Somebody that's posted something that is relevant, that's not over the top, overboard. What should you do about that? Well, first, realize that problems are not going to disappear with the comment, right? So make sure that you're addressing this. And if you don't address it, the customer is just going to get angry and potentially commenting more, and you might turn them into an irrational person. If they've taken the time to and energy to post this negative comment, we need to deal with it. If you do ignore it, it's only going to make matters worse. So again, try to respond quickly within 15 to 60 minutes of that negative comment. Whatever you're going to post in public on that comment, be calm, be polite, take a breath. Don't just get angry and post something in there and hit the send button. You're going to regret that, I promise you. Thank them for their opinion. Apologize for whatever the inconvenience was or whatever the issue was, and then encourage them to send you a private message. Once they do that, now it's out of the public eye, and you're able to deal with that like you would any other negative comment or disgruntled customer, right? So if you go through those first steps, address it publicly because they made it public, be calm, be polite, thank them, apologize, and then say, hey, why don't you PM me and let's talk about this and we'll get this resolved. Rational people will follow that because they're looking for a solution to that problem or whatever that issue was. Now let's talk about the irrational, often called trolls out there, right? These are the ones that post the really outrageous comments and so forth. On the public forum, you should absolutely go in and give a warning. Again, be polite and be calm about it, but you can absolutely be stern in what you say to them. And again, we're talking about people that post things that you know not to be true, that you know are over the top. So give them that warning, and if they refuse to listen, then it's okay to delete them and delete that post off of your page. And you can certainly block them after that. And this one is sort of the golden rule to live by, especially if you're the owner of the company. Don't think that your personal social media is separate from your brand and your company page. I mentioned earlier, if you're the type that likes to post the fun things that you did on Friday, make sure that that's the kind of thing that you're okay with the public seeing. Because there's not going to be a separation in your customer's mind, whether that's a loss victim, an insurance agent, from what you post in your personal threads versus what's on your page. They're going to associate you personally to your brand, and they will make that connection very quickly. A lot of them will get to know that you are the owner of company XYZ. And how you behave and what you post on social media is an absolute direct reflection of your company's brand. So just be aware of that and be careful about what you're posting out there, and just kind of live by that rule. So quick recap on the do's: know your customers, be active, don't overdo it, keep track of the times that you're posting and take advantage of when people are most active on your page. Have a company social media policy. Be certain that you're out there sharing and being actively involved on social media. Follow a checklist. Just make sure that what you post and when you post it up, those kinds of things, you got a quick checklist to make sure that you're consistent. Be original. Don't be afraid to put some personality out there and put some interesting and fun things out there. Provide great service. Make sure there's all kinds of opportunities to share information with your customers that they'll find valuable. Again, have that personality. Don't be afraid to let your personality shine through in your social media, and then know which social media platforms work for you. Test them, try them out, take a look at the data. It'll tell you which ones are getting the most involvement. Things not to do: do not like your own posts. Don't neglect your profile. Make sure that it's set up properly, images, contact information, those kinds of things. Be careful about sharing too much or too early. Don't use social media to upend other things that are going on in the company of information you want to get out there, whether that's new CE classes, new offerings, those kinds of things. You're going to have some folks that you're working with that want to see and hear about that before they see and hear about it on social media. Don't connect with everyone. Be careful about who you're liking and following, because it's going to be a direct reflection on you and your company. Don't forget to use social media to network. It's probably the most powerful thing that you can do on social media. Don't forget that those posts live forever. The moment that somebody shares it, grabs it, it's going to be out there forever. So always take a deep breath and pause. Follow that checklist before you post. Don't be spammy. Again, in our world, what that means is don't post the same content, repeatedly day in and day out. Don't ignore people's comments, and certainly deal with the negative ones as we talked about. And don't forget that your personal posts on your social media pages, if you've got those set to public, now you can always turn those private, but if you've got those set to public, know that the folks that are out there that are following you on your company's social media pages will often look at your personal ones too, because they're not going to draw a distinction between the two. And that's it. I'm going to turn it over to Cliff. Appreciate you guys joining with us today. And like I said, probably next month we'll get into some of the specifics around social media platforms, marketing, how to use each one best. And I'm going to turn it over to Cliff right now. I appreciate it. Thanks.